Update. Am I the a-hole for marrying my sister's ex? Original post. Me, 27 female, and my sister, 29 female, have been fighting recently for something that I thought got resolved a long time ago. I've debated posting for like a week now, but figured someone not directly involved would be good to hear from. A couple months ago, I married my husband Greg, 29 male, after being together for 4 years. We met each other working at the same office, and I developed this huge crush on him. I was pretty sure he was into me too, so I decided to bring it up to my sister Alicia. Alicia and Greg had dated in middle school when they were both 13-ish, and because it had been so long and at such a young age, I didn't think there would be an issue, but I still wanted to check. I didn't want to accidentally start dating some long-lost love of her life or something, so I thought I would clear the air by asking. She seemed a bit surprised because I don't think she was expecting to hear about her middle school ex-boyfriend randomly so many years later, but after we talked for a bit, she said she didn't really care. So I thought, cool, I have to go ahead. I thanked her and moved on with things, and a little while later, me and Greg got together. It's never seemed to be an issue before recently. We hit all the milestones and she seemed to be happy for us. When I met my family again, they were a bit surprised, but things were fine. My sister was even one of the bridesmaids and seemed happy for me the entire time. Like, I haven't really thought of them dating in forever because it no longer seems relevant. I mean, she has a husband at this point, so it doesn't seem like a middle school boyfriend would be something to dwell on. We were with my family this Christmas, and things were going just as fine as they usually are, until my sister started handing out the presents she had gotten. Now, we don't get each other presents every year, and people in my family typically aren't buying special presents for people they're not close to. So the in-laws don't get screwed or anything, because they didn't buy every individual cousin a gift. But during my wedding planning, she said she wanted to get me something special for my first Christmas as a married woman, and it took me off guard. I looked sort of confused for a second, but I didn't want to be a witch on Christmas, so I just smiled and watched everyone open their gifts. Lots of circumstances could cause someone to not be able to get a gift, so it's fine. But after she finished handing things out, she looked at me and said I wasn't getting anything because I had taken enough. I asked her what she meant because, And she said I didn't have to be so weird to plot to take Greg from her. I'll admit, I had a crush on him when I was 11, but I didn't plan my life around dating him one day. I grabbed her and pulled her into the other room and we started yelling at each other. I definitely said some nasty things, because if she had an issue, why wouldn't she bring that up when I directly asked her? We both wound up leaving my parents' house early and her husband seemed super angry. My mom texted that she was disappointed we fought in Christmas, which, yeah, I get, but it's not like I did it intentionally. She's telling whatever family members will listen about how I stole her boyfriend, and so they're mad at me. And I don't feel like I could be an a-hole, but I also can't tell. Greg's super angry because she's been trying to message him about this, and he doesn't get why this is such an issue. I've tried to speak with her a couple times, and I brought up how I asked her already for permission, but she says I took her off guard. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Oh, good God. Does sister's husband know that sister is mad about this? You had no way until just now that sister was angry. I would not want to be in her husband's shoes right now. He was there during presents, so he has to be aware. Even though we definitely talked more away from everyone, she made it pretty clear why she was mad while we were still sitting around. That's super embarrassing. No wonder why she's trying so hard to paint you as the bad guy. She's aware she made a huge mistake in the heat of the moment. It's clear that by making everyone believe you're at fault, she's really trying to convince herself this isn't the screw-up of her life. Wait, your sister is 29 and she's accusing you of stealing someone she dated briefly at 13? Despite the fact that she'd clearly moved on, married someone else, and had given you the go-ahead? Not the a-hole. Your sister, however, needs therapy. Not the a-hole. Considering how happy you two are, it's likely that your sister is dissatisfied in her marriage and wishes she had married Greg instead. She believes you stole her happy married life because she observes you leading a contented life. I can't believe this is real, but if it is, then there's something else behind that outburst. Nobody trips out about a middle school boyfriend they didn't think about or talk to for years. There is some other issue bothering her, and you were just the most convenient thing she could blow up on. With her going off on you about Greg, my guess would be some issue between her and her husband. Now that I've seen so many people mention that, that's what I'm thinking. In the morning, I think I'm going to ask my mom if she knows anything that could be going on between Alicia and her husband. They seemed fine before what happened, but so did she. So that's not a great judge on things, I guess. Edit. Just finished talking to my mom. We'll update either tomorrow or the next day. I'm so angry. Now for the full update. Things are pretty tense right now in my family, but less people are mad at me now. A lot of you are correct about the marriage issues between my sister and her husband. The other night, my mom invited me over to talk about what was happening. First, she apologized for telling me she was disappointed. Her and my dad were just upset there was drama on Christmas. I apologized for picking the fight during the gift exchange because I know I definitely could have waited until later. Her and my sister have been talking a lot the past couple of days. I have yet to talk to her in person. Alicia told my mom that her husband, Chris, had told Alicia that I had been flirting with him and I had seduced him. I would never freaking do that. So this was a pretty big shock to hear. He had never been weird to me, so I had always been cordial, but I am in no way attracted to him. She had told my mom a couple months back that Chris was interested in another woman, but never said who. They had been going to couples counseling to help, and Alicia told my mom it had been helping. We're not sure what caused her to snap at Christmas specifically, since beforehand she told my mom things were getting better. My mom had called her the night after we fought, and that's when my sister told her that I was the person Chris had been talking about. I just don't get why they'd pretend we had been flirting or why she'd even believe it. I've always been open about Greg, and I can't even think of the last time I've spoken to Chris without someone else present. I guess he wanted to avoid responsibility or something, but he didn't have to make that my issue. But the stealing comment she made towards me was because I guess she saw it as once as a coincidence, two as a pattern, and thought I was some evil witch who wanted every guy she had. When my mom called me over, she didn't think I was doing anything with Chris, but still asked to make sure, which really hurt to be honest. It's not like I can prove I'm not doing something, but she believes me at least. Since we've talked, she's been doing damage control on all the relatives, who my sister was telling I was stealing her husband. This whole thing would have been easier if she had just talked to me about it. My mom said she would try to talk to Alicia some more to convince her I'm not trying to steal her husband. Greg's pissed. He's mad at my whole family pretty much, but mostly Alicia and Chris. She texted Greg yesterday, Opie only loves you because you are mine. I guess she doesn't believe my mom. He blocked her after that. I don't know. I was hoping the reason would have been something else. I'm not sure what to do. I don't know if my relationship with her can come back from this, and I refuse to be anywhere near Chris. It's possible your brother-in-law cheated and is using you as a smokescreen to hide it. It is unfortunate your sister chose this route, but that's on her. It is also possible she knows he cheated and who with, and is also using you as a smokescreen. Either way, none of this is on you. Your sister is adult and is capable of communicating like an adult, and not like she's 14 again. Probably because sister has complained to him about Opie stealing her ex. Easy target for him to use. Oh, it's definitely this. He's been subjected to listening to the sister's insanity about Greg being an important ex. He got sick of it, cheated, and blamed sister-in-law. Because she's a believable target because of the sister being nuts, and because he gets back at his wife in such a twisted way. Sister and her husband deserve each other. Last story. Am I the a-hole for screaming at my sister-in-law when she wouldn't save my drowning kid because of her trauma? I, 30 female, have one daughter, Heather, 2 female with my husband. My brother, 36 male, is married to my sister-in-law, Kelly, 37 female. She has one son from an ex, 12 male, and one daughter, Sadie, 3 female, with my brother. We've never been super close, but before all this, we had a good relationship overall, and I liked her. Kelly has a fear of going into water. When she was 6, she was at a family barbecue and began to drown in the pool. There were so many kids splashing around in the water. The adults just thought she was playing her or something like that. She lost consciousness and came very close to dying. She got into therapy and has since allowed her son and Sadie to learn how to swim. When Sadie was 1 to 2 years old, she'd only allow it as long as her son or my brother were right next to her. Now she seems fairly laid back over having her kids in the water, even without strict supervision. This was surprising to me, but it's her life, so I never commented. A few months ago, she and my brother even told me she was doing exposure therapy and slowly learning to not let her fears control her. She's even had a small swim lesson and was feeling fairly calm walking around in a shallow pool. Every Thanksgiving and Christmas, we go to visit my parents in their retirement neighborhood in Florida. Kelly has told me all about our past and the time we've spent together there for the holidays. It has a nice community pool with a recreation center. There's only a lifeguard on duty Saturday, but the recreation center has employees at the front desk if you go inside. While we were there for Thanksgiving, the Weather Channel predicted only one day would be nice enough for the kids to swim. My sister-in-law, brother, husband, and I were planning to take them in the late afternoon. Grandparents were busy with some other event that day. I fell and sprained my ankle. My husband said he'd drive me to an urgent care. I didn't want my daughter to miss the pool outing, so I said I'd allow her to go with my brother's family. My brother and nephew promised to be by her side whole time. My brother and nephew apparently wanted to play ping pong on the table that was in the recreation center. Sadie and Heather were still splashing in the shallow 3 feet end of the pool with Kelly watching in a lounge chair. She said they could go because she'd keep an eye on the girls and go get them if they get into any trouble. Kelly had put Heather in a pool tube around her waist to float. Somehow, Heather flipped over and was stuck upside down in the water. She began to kick and panic, so Sadie got scared and started to cry. Kelly noticed and also started to freak out. She began to scream at Sadie to get her out or flip her back over. Sadie tried at first, but wasn't strong enough and couldn't get a good grip. Plus, she was scared and confused from her mother's yelling. I know she has a legitimate trauma, so I understand why that would scare her, and would have been fine with her not jumping in herself. I wouldn't be so upset if she then had common sense to run into the recreation center to grab anyone else to save my daughter. It was the next building over. If she had ran inside to ask for help, everything would have been turned out a lot better. I have no idea what was going on in this woman's head, but she grabbed a pool net to try and get Heather out. This would have made sense if she had used it to guide my daughter to a place she could grab her out, but it seemed that she tried to carry my daughter in the net. And when she didn't fit, she moved to a different strategy that looked like just awkwardly smacking her. This moved Heather to the deeper part of the pool. She never seemed all that stupid to me, so I don't know why she tried to save my daughter the most inefficient way possible. Eventually, a recreation center employee heard her panicking and ran outside. He had CPR, and she threw up a lot of water. They called an ambulance, and my husband and I met everyone at the hospital. Heather had a lot of bruises on her lower half. I asked what happened, and Kelly told me about the pool net and everything, plus how she had it immediately gotten someone else. I was so angry, I yelled at the boys, and her. How could she see my daughter dying and not do anything? The first thing she said was literally, well, I kept yelling at Sadie to help her. This really ticked me off. She was blaming all this on her toddler. I know everyone makes mistakes, but seriously? When I asked her why she didn't sprint for help right away, she said she was overwhelmed and that I shouldn't attack her because my kid couldn't swim to save herself. The pool tube was around her waist, was trapping her upside down. This set me off. I was and still am disgusted with my brother, but her words made me break and lose it. I started to scream at her how pathetic she was and that she was just as bad as her family members who let her drown. I kept yelling until she started to sob and security made us stop. My husband and I were so upset we demanded to see the recreation center's footage from the pool security camera, and we saw exactly what happened. After we went back home, I sent a short text to Kelly that I was sorry for losing my cool. I was completely out of line and blamed the wrong person to deal with it all. She sent back a paragraph saying I'm a psycho witch for blaming her for her own trauma response. She even said maybe it would have been better for my daughter to die than have a mom like me. Obviously, I haven't contacted her or my brother since. My parents began to yell at me when I yelled at Kelly, so I haven't spoken to them much either. For Christmas, we aren't joining them this year, and my husband fully agrees with me. My best friend and her family live a few hours away, so don't see her as often as I'd like. Since it's just us for Christmas, she offered to have us stay at her nice house so my daughter can play with her kids. A couple days ago, we stayed up drinking wine and talking. She knew about it, but I told her all the details for the first time. After I was done, she asked if she could give me a bit of advice. I was curious what she wanted to say, so I said yes. She said what Kelly said was awful and she went way too far, especially with her text about my daughter. Plus, it was stupid that her first thought was to yell at her toddler daughter to do something. Kelly could have handled it all way better with a calm start. Of course, though, she was panicking in an awful situation, so she couldn't think as clearly. I'm furious with my brother as well. I was so upset and was yelling at him too. It was what my sister-in-law said that really hurt and set me off. I was so panicked and wasn't thinking straight. I will never let my brother watch Heather while I'm busy doing something ever again. She said she understood why I felt so angry at the hospital, but I shouldn't have had such an emotional reaction, or at least should have found time to eventually sit down in person and apologize for my outburst. It was a stressful situation for everyone. The mean things Kelly said after were wrong, but I should have sat down face to face to discuss all of our feeling and give both her and I the chance to apologize for what we said to each other. I'm feeling a lot more guilty now. I lashed out and she lashed out in turn. I talked to my husband about it, but he's still furious with them and says we don't owe them anything. I miss my niece and nephew. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Though honestly, I would be equally if not more mad at my brother. He committed to watching your daughter and then left her in the hands of someone not equipped to do so. If her trauma is still that strong, she should not be in any way responsible for watching kids in swimming situations. And for her to say your daughter would be better off dead is unforgivable in my opinion. You tried to apologize for your understandable emotional reaction. It's on her to apologize for her actions and the awful things she said now. That was the part I found most egregious about this. Sister-in-law's trauma response that almost resulted in a child dying totes okay. But OP's trauma response that led to her yelling at the person who nearly let her child die, absolutely unforgivable. And her daughter was better off dead? This is one of the worst guilt deflections I've ever seen. I blame the brother. He knew his wife are no good when it comes to water. And the dumbass left the kids alone with a person who has a phobia? Who the heck is that stupid? The mother of Heather should get her big pants on and take a freaking serious talk with big bro who don't care about safety. The sister-in-law is equally bad. She must have agreed to watch Heather if this was how it turned out. Then she's screaming at her little kid to save Heather? These two people couldn't be trusted with their own kids, let alone someone else's. Clearly, they don't know or are capable of having any child around water at the very least. OP is not the a-hole, and it is totally understandable that she would lose her mind like this. Kelly needs a big old smack and some counseling, and I wouldn't be talking to her ever again.